I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here we are. My name's Jake, and I've been with Amanda for about 4 years now. We got engaged 6 months ago, and honestly, I thought things were pretty good. Sure, we had our typical disagreements. She can be a bit bitchy, always quick to lie and twist things around if it suits her. But I figured that was just her being her. We had some rough patches, sure, but I trusted her, or at least I thought I did. The signs started slowly. Amanda's phone started buzzing more than usual. She'd sneak off sometimes and lock herself in the bedroom, saying she was talking to her sister or working late. Little things, but enough to make me suspicious. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept quiet. I figured maybe she was stressed about the wedding or maybe just some girl stuff. Then came the night before the bachelor party. She was acting weird, distracted, even snappy. I asked her what was wrong, and she snapped back that I was overthinking, that she was tired. But I noticed her phone was vibrating constantly, more than usual, and she kept hiding it when I looked. That night I decided to check her messages. I know, it's a betrayal of trust myself, but I was desperate to understand what was going on. I didn't think I'd actually find anything. Turns out I was right to be suspicious. When I grabbed her phone after she fell asleep, I found a series of messages that made my stomach drop. They weren't just innocent texts, they were flirtatious, intimate. She was meeting someone named Mike, at the house. I read about her sneaking out late at night, saying she was working late or meeting up with the girls, but it was all a lie. The messages were clear. Amanda and Mike had been seeing each other behind my back for months, and she was planning to run away with him after the wedding. I couldn't believe it. I felt sick. My heart sank to my stomach, and I just stared at the screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. The worst part. She was so brazen about it. She convinced herself she was getting away with it. She told her friends she was done with me, that I was boring, that I didn't understand her needs. And there she was, secretly meeting her lover at our house, our supposed sanctuary. I kept scrolling through the messages, trying to find some sign I'd misunderstood, but there was no mistake. It was all there, laid out in black and white. I stayed up all night, replaying everything in my head. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind was racing. How could she betray me like this? We've been through so much, and I always thought she was the one. But now I felt like a fool. How many times had I missed the signs? How long had this been going on? And what's worse, her attitude when I confronted her. That's coming in the next part because it's a whole other mess. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My head was pounding, my stomach was twisted, and I knew I couldn't keep this bottled up. I had to confront her, no matter how much it hurt. So I waited until I knew she'd be home, which was, surprisingly, pretty quick. The moment she walked in, I could see her trying to act normal, like everything was fine. That fake smile she puts on when she's hiding something, it made my blood boil. I didn't waste time. I looked her right in the eyes and told her I knew everything. She froze for a second, then scoffed and rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, Jake, you're overreacting. That's just some stupid joking around. You're reading too much into it." She waved her hand dismissively, trying to brush it off like I was crazy, but I wasn't buying it. I pulled out her phone and showed her the messages, the ones where she was planning to leave me, meet him at the house, and run away after the wedding. Her eyes widened, and then she got defensive, flipping the script as usual. "You're always so paranoid. Honestly, I don't know what you want from me. Maybe I was just having some fun. Maybe I needed someone to talk to. It doesn't mean I was going to leave you." She told me I was crazy for thinking she'd cheat, that she loved me and that I was blowing things out of proportion. But after reading those texts, I knew the truth. She'd been lying. From the start. She'd been lying for months, sneaking out, meeting him secretly, and now she wanted to act innocent. We argued for hours. She kept insisting it was all a big misunderstanding, that Mike was just a friend, that she was only talking to him to vent about the wedding stress. She called me possessive and jealous, said I was insecure. But I knew better. I saw her texts, her plans, her lies. All the excuses in the world couldn't change the fact that she'd been cheating on me with my best man, Mike, the guy I trusted most in the world. By the end of it, I was numb. I felt everything all at once: anger, sadness, betrayal, and a deep, burning rage I'd never felt before. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How could she turn out to be this person? How could she lie so easily, manipulate me, and think she could get away with it? I told her she needed to leave, that I didn't want to see her face again until she decided what she really wanted. She stormed out, calling me crazy, telling me I was overreacting. That was her usual line whenever she got caught, but I knew I'd never see her the same way again. That day, everything changed. I sat alone in the house trying to process what just happened. I looked around at the place we'd built together and I felt nothing but emptiness. I thought about the wedding, the plans, the dreams, all shattered. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, and honestly I was furious. Not just at her, but at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. How did I miss all the red flags? How did I let her get so good at lying? That's when the thoughts of revenge started creeping in. I knew I couldn't just let her walk away, not after what she did. I wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me, to see that I wasn't some pushover who'd be fooled again. But how? That's what I had to figure out next. And believe me, I didn't plan on just letting her go without a fight. After she left that day, I knew I had to do something. Sitting there alone, I couldn't shake the feeling that she thought she got away with it, that I'd be too heartbroken or too stupid to fight back. But I wasn't going to let her win that easily. I started planning my revenge, even if I didn't quite know what that looked like yet. I just knew I wanted her to feel some of the pain she'd put me through. First, I needed proof. I wasn't about to confront her again blindly or just throw accusations around. I went through her phone, her emails, her social media accounts, all the usual stuff. I wanted more details, more evidence to make her see that I wasn't bluffing. That's when I found out she'd been talking with Mike behind my back for over a year. There were texts, photos, even some explicit stuff. She'd been perfectly willing to cheat on me, and I realized she'd been lying to my face all this time. I also started talking to some of her friends, people I thought I could trust. I needed their perspective, and yeah, I wanted to see if anyone else knew about the affair. Turns out a couple of her friends knew she was cheating but didn't tell me. They said Amanda was bitchy and manipulative, and that she'd been trying to hide her affair for months. That made me furious. I mean, how much more of a betrayal could I take? She was lying to everyone, including her own friends, trying to cover her tracks. Meanwhile, I kept my cool. I didn't want her to think I was losing my mind, even if I was inside. I knew I had to be smart about this. I started thinking about how to use her own game against her. If she thought I was just some guy who'd crumble, I was gonna prove her wrong. I decided that I'd make her regret what she did big time. It wasn't just about catching her. I wanted to make her see that her lies and betrayal had consequences. The turning point was when I found out she planned to leave town with Mike after the wedding. They had a whole escape route mapped out, a getaway car, everything. That was the moment I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her run away with him, not without a fight. So I did something cold, something calculated. I contacted a private investigator. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but I needed more concrete proof, and I needed to know exactly where she and Mike were planning to go. The Pi tracked her plans down to a shitty motel a few towns over. I sat there, staring at the details, feeling the anger bubble up again. She thought she was unstoppable, that she could just walk away from everything, leave me broken and start fresh. But now I had even more leverage, more dirt she didn't see coming. Every lie, every secret, every message, it was all coming out in the end. And honestly, I was starting to feel some clarity. I knew I wasn't going to be that guy who just takes it lying down. I was going to make her regret betraying me so badly. That's when I started planning my next move, the one where I finally got the revenge I knew she deserved. The game was on, and I wasn't about to lose. The plan started to take shape in my head, and I knew I had to be patient. I didn't want to just lash out and make things worse. I wanted her to see that I was in control, that I had the upper hand now. I spent days gathering everything I could. More messages, timelines of her meetings with Mike, details about their planned escape. I even hired someone to make sure she wouldn't get away without some consequences. I wasn't just angry, I was determined to make her regret everything she'd done. One night I decided to confront her again. I called her, pretending I'd just come across some new evidence. She didn't answer at first, but I kept calling until she finally picked up. She sounded annoyed, like I was just bothering her. I told her I knew about her plan to run away with Mike, that I had proof and that I wasn't going to let her disappear without a fight. Her voice got defensive right away, trying to deny everything, saying I was crazy, that I was stalking her, that she'd never do anything like that. But I had the proof, and I knew she was lying. I told her I'd be waiting at the house, and I wanted her to come home and face what she did. She hesitated, then finally agreed, probably because she knew I wasn't bluffing anymore. When she walked in that night, her face was a mix of anger and fear. She kept denying everything, calling me paranoid, saying I was making up stories, but I wasn't falling for her lies anymore. I threw all the evidence on the table, the messages, the plans, the time stamps. Her face turned pale. She tried to talk her way out, saying it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything, that she loved me and that I was just jealous. I looked at her and said, "You lied to my face for months, lied to everyone. You were planning to run away with him, weren't you? How long has this been going on? How many times did you meet him at our house? Don't bother denying it anymore." Her eyes flickered and she finally broke down a little, swearing she'd been confused, that she'd never meant for it to go this far. She blamed her stress, her boredom, said she was just seeking excitement. But I knew better. I knew it wasn't just about stress or boredom. It was about her being a bitchy, manipulative liar who wanted to have her cake and eat it too. That confrontation was the turning point. I could see she realized I wasn't just some fool to be played anymore. Deep down, she knew she'd lost control, but I also felt the weight of everything she'd done, how deeply she'd betrayed me, how much she'd hurt me. I thought about all the times I was there for her and she was sneaking around behind my back. The rage inside me was boiling, but I knew I had to stay calm. I told her she'd have to choose, stay and be honest, or leave and never come back. And I made it clear that if she chose to stay, things would never be the same. Her reaction: she threw a tantrum, calling me possessive and crazy, saying I was ruining everything. She stormed out of the house, yelling she'd be gone soon enough, that she'd find her way without me. I watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of relief and hurt. I was glad I finally had the truth, but it didn't erase the pain. The trust was shattered, and I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. That night I stayed up again, just staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. In the days that followed her explosive exit, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. The house was eerily silent without her, and every little thing reminded me of what she had done. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I kept replaying everything in my head, every lie, every sneaky meeting, every false smile she gave me. I was furious, but mostly I was hurt. She'd thrown away everything we had built over some guy, some affair, some stupid thrill she was chasing. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. I continued to gather evidence, just in case I needed it for any legal or emotional leverage. I reached out to her friends again, trying to piece together how long she'd been lying to everyone, including her own family. Turns out, some of her closest friends knew about the affair but kept quiet because they didn't want to get involved. Apparently, Amanda had a reputation for being bitchy and manipulative, and they said she was always looking for ways to stir trouble. That made me angry. How could I have missed all of this? How blind had I been? Meanwhile, I was also secretly making arrangements. I'd contacted a lawyer knowing I needed to protect myself legally now that everything was out in the open. I didn't want her coming back and trying to manipulate the situation anymore. I also started planning a way to confront Mike, the guy she'd been cheating with. I wanted him to know I wasn't just going to let this slide. I wasn't about to be some cuckolded fool, passive and broken. One evening, I got a call from the private investigator. They found out Mike was planning to meet Amanda again, possibly to leave town right after the wedding. That was the last piece I needed. I decided I wasn't going to let her slip away, not without a fight. I set up a trap, arranged to meet her at a local bar, one she knew I'd be at. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I was no longer the naive guy she thought she could manipulate. When she showed up that night, I was already sitting at a corner table. She looked surprised, maybe even a little nervous. I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling. I looked at her and said, "You're not leaving with Mike, Amanda. Not anymore, I know. About everything, you and him, the plans, you're not going anywhere. Her face paled and she started arguing, calling me possessive and stalking, just like she did before. But this time I was ready. I pulled out all the evidence, screenshots of the chats, the evidence of her planning to run away. She tried to deny it, saying she was just confused, that Mike was just a distraction, that she never meant to hurt me. But I knew better. I laid it all out piece by piece. Her excuses were falling apart. She looked at me with contempt, trying to act like she was the victim, but I saw the truth in her eyes. She'd been planning her escape for months, cheating behind my back, and now she was trying to save herself. That night, I made her face her choices. I told her she had to decide whether she wanted to stay and be honest or keep running and see how far she could go. I told her I wouldn't be a pawn in her game anymore. She stormed off, furious, screaming that I was crazy, that she'd never really loved me, and that I'd regret pushing her away. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. I'd had enough. The pain, the betrayal, it was all too much. I realized that some things couldn't be fixed, no matter how much I wanted to believe in us. I knew I'd have to live with the fallout, but at least now I was in control. I'd uncovered the truth, and I'd made sure she knew I wasn't going to be a victim of her lies. That night, I decided to move forward, whether that meant trying to heal or just cutting her out of my life entirely. I'd learned a hard lesson about trust, betrayal, and not ignoring the red flags. And honestly, I'd never take someone like her for granted again. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever experienced, but also the most clarifying. I finally let go of the hope that things could somehow be salvaged. That woman I thought I knew, the one I married, was gone long before I ever realized. The betrayal ran so much deeper than I'd ever imagined, and it changed how I see trust and loyalty forever. I moved out of the house, packed my things, and started rebuilding my life from scratch. It wasn't easy. There were moments of intense anger, sadness, and even self-doubt, but I knew I had to do it for myself. I cut ties with Amanda completely. No contact, no explanations, nothing. I realized that some betrayals are unforgivable, and trying to hold on only prolongs the pain. I sought therapy to help process what happened, to heal the wounds that betrayal had left behind. It was a long, messy road, but I eventually came to terms with the fact that I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't lie, cheat, and manipulate their way out of a relationship. Looking back, I learned some hard lessons. Trust is fragile and takes years to build but can be shattered in a moment. Never ignore the small red flags. They're often warning signs you shouldn't dismiss. And most importantly, never stay in a relationship where you feel more pain than happiness, no matter how much you love or how connected you think you are. The whole experience has left me scarred, but also stronger. It taught me that revenge isn't about petty payback. It's about reclaiming your power and dignity. I refuse to be a victim of betrayal anymore. Instead, I focus on rebuilding myself, more cautious, more aware, and ultimately more hopeful. I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar realizes they're not alone. There's a way out, and one day you'll find your peace again.